it's going to happen quite often that you're going to want to change the denominator of a fraction that you're working with. And there's an important principle to remember when you're doing this, is that if you multiply a number by 1, that does not change its value. So that's a general principle of arithmetic, and it's going to be useful to us here. And I've just told you that a fraction with a numerator and denominator that are the same is equal to 1. So that applies to this. So I can say multiplying by a fraction where numerator is equal to denominator does not change the value. Okay, so there are 3 different things we might want to do in my mind. So I'm going to have 3 columns here. So first of all, let's talk about simplifying fractions. Okay, so here what I mean by that is that the numerator and denominator are as small as possible while still being whole numbers, integers. Okay, so this is the first thing I'm going to talk about, simplifying a fraction. So what do we do for that? So first of all, we factorize. So that means you split the number up into all the different smaller numbers that you can multiply together to make that number. And I'll show you an example of that in a minute. And then what we can do is cancel out the numbers that are on the top and the bottom. Found on top and bottom in the numerator and the denominator. Okay, so let's have an example. So let's say we've got 30 over 1050, just to pluck an example out the air. So we can factorize these, so that means that we could say that the 30, we can break it down into 3 times 5 times 2 times 1, and these are all prime numbers. Once you get good at it, you can just kind of spot large numbers that are the same and get rid of those. And I've put the times 1 here. You'll see why in a second. That doesn't change the value of this though. And then 1050, you can break it down into 3 times 5 times 2 times 5 times 7. Okay, so here we've got 3 over 3, and that is a fraction with a numerator and denominator that are the same, so that's equal to 1. So you can cancel those out. So this whole thing is just equal to 1. Multiplying something by 1 doesn't change it. Here we've got 5 over 5, so again 5 over 5, numerator and denominator the same, doesn't change. 2 over 2, same deal. So now we've just got 1 over 5 times 7, which is 35. So that's simplifying fractions. Second thing you might want to do is change the denominator in another way that suits you more generally. So more generally, what do you need to do? So let's just have a look at this fraction just to explain the principle. So here we've got 1/4. So here we've got 4 equal parts, and one of them is shaded in red. We're taking one of them. But we could split those equal parts into further smaller pieces, as long as they're still all equal. So here, for example, I split each of those into half, and now we've got 2 red pieces out of 8. And we could do that again. Now we've got 4, 8, 16 equal pieces, and 4 of those are shaded. and so on. You could keep on going. So that's the general principle. And yeah, so simplifying is going the other way. So here we've got 4 out of 16, and you can see that in fact the simplest way of saying it is 1 out of 4. But here we're going the other way. And now let's imagine we want a fraction out of 128. What do you do? So I know, so 128 is equal to 4 times 32. So 1/4 is how many out of 128? 128 is 4 times 32. So so we do 1/4 times 32 over 32. So we're doing the same thing to the top and the bottom, so we're not changing the value of the fraction. And that gives us 32 out of 128. So I'm looking for what we have to multiply the original denominator by to get the denominator we want. And then I'm multiplying the top and the bottom by that number because that'll keep the overall value the same. Alright, the third thing I want to talk about is common denominators. Okay, that's the third part of what I want to say. So the common denominator is so two fractions. This is for 2 or more fractions, and you can get them the same, but the numerator should still be a whole number. So for example, common denominator for, let's say, 2/3 and 1/6. So how do I go about that? So here, what I can do quite easily is see that 6 is equal to 2 times 3. And handily, we've got a 3 here. So here, I want the 6 to be our common denominator. So what do? I then have to change the 2/3, so it has a denominator of 6. What do I do for that? So 2/3 times 2 over 2. So that's the number by which we have to multiply it, so that gives us 4/6. So now we have both 1/6 and 4/6, and these both have the same denominator, obviously. So that, we have the idea of lowest common denominator. So that's what we've done there. This is the lowest one it's possible to have. But also, what I sometimes would recommend you do, especially for more complicated numbers, is the stupid fat hands, is the easiest common denominator. So how would you do that? You simply multiply the two denominators together. So in this example of our 2/3 and 1/6, what would you do? You would multiply 3 times 6, so that's 18 would be our common denominator. So here it's 6 and here it's 18. And so what would you do? You do 2/3 times 6 over 6, which gives us 12 over 18, or you'd have 1/6 times 3 over 3, which gives us 3 over 18. So you could do the the lowest common denominator by looking at the different factors of the two denominators, or you could just do the easiest common denominator by multiplying the two different denominators you're working with by each other.